for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. South Korea's central bank decided to leave its key interest rate as it has been for the past 1 year and 4 months at 3.5%. Consumer inflation, which is still far from the central bank's goal of 2%, was the main reason for Thursday's decision. At the AI Seoul Summit here in South Korea, global and business leaders agreed on tighter cooperation on governing artificial intelligence and leaving the technology in good hands. Ireland, Norway, and Spain say they officially recognize a Palestinian state starting next week. Israel slammed the plan, calling the decision a reward for terrorism. The Bank of Korea has announced its intentions to keep its benchmark interest rate frozen for the 11th session in a row at 3.5%, as high inflation is yet to be crushed. Our finance correspondent Lee Soo-jin leads us this afternoon.
South Korea's central bank kept its benchmark interest rate steady at 3.5% as widely expected amid ongoing concerns about inflation. The decision was announced on Thursday following the last Monetary Policy Committee meeting of the first half of the year.
While inflation is slowing, given the signs of recovery in economic growth, the exchange rate volatility, and geopolitical risks, we have decided to maintain our current monetary tightening stance.
This is the 11th consecutive meeting that the BOK has decided to freeze the rate. The base rate was last raised in January last year to 3.5%, the 10th consecutive rate hike. The rate freeze decision this month comes amid ongoing concerns about inflation. While the Consumer Price Index, a key gauge of inflation, fell below the 3% range in April for the first time since January, consumer prices saw on-year increases of 3.1% in February and March. And the 2.9% on-year growth in consumer prices in April still remains above the central bank's target of 2%. Prices for agricultural goods, livestock, and fishery products were up 10.6% on-year in April. Fresh fruit saw huge price increases, with the price of apples up by more than 80% on-year and pears up by more than 100%. That was the biggest rise for pears on record. The BOK's decision was also influenced by the U.S. Central Bank in its most recent May meeting, deciding to keep interest rates unchanged for the 6th consecutive time. And Federal Reserve officials are saying there is no rush to cut interest rates despite inflation showing signs of easing. The U.S. Labor Department showed that consumer prices in the United States were up 3.4% on year in April, slightly less than the 3.5% on-year rise seen the previous month. But several regional Federal Reserve Bank presidents said in separate interviews just last Thursday that more economic data is required to be confident that inflation is on course to reach the 2% target, suggesting that interest rates will remain high for longer. Given these recent commentaries, economists are not expecting to see rate cuts until the Fed's September Open Market Committee meeting at the earliest, as it's unlikely that the BOK will cut interest rates ahead of the United States, with the current interest rate gap between the two countries at its largest ever at 2 percentage points. Korea's central bank is not expected to ease its monetary policies until around October or November. Meanwhile, the BOK also raised its economic growth outlook for this year to 2.5%, up from 2.1%, further adding to projections that the key interest rate will not be lowered for the time being. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
And the BOK's fight against inflation is no different from what's happening over in the United States. Minutes from the last FOMC meeting suggested that there is a lack of confidence to push forward with interest rate reductions. Our An Sung-jin reports.
U.S. Federal Reserve officials have indicated that it may take longer than expected to see the interest rate come down. Minutes from the most recent Federal Open Market Committee, which took place from April 30th to May 1st, were released on Thursday, stating concerns over a lack of confidence in the slowing of inflation. Inflation has been more stubborn than officials forecast at the beginning of this year. The Core Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index, a key indicator used in the U.S. to measure expenditure for goods and services, jumped 0.5% on month in January and 0.3% in February and March. That's above the Fed's target of a 0.2% on-month PCE increase if it's to meet its inflation goal of 2%.
The short answer seems to be the Fed is not giving up on that target. but it's an arbitrary target based in some academic, some practical research, but no factor law in that sense. And if the Fed is unable to hit 2%, I would not be surprised to see if the goalposts move a bit closer to 2.5%.
News of further prolonged inflation woes raised concerns on the market, with stocks down at the end of trading Wednesday despite a stronger than expected performance from Nvidia. Nvidia's results have been a focal point for Wall Street as it holds more than 80% of the AI chip market. During the day, the Nasdaq, S&P, and Dow Jones Industrial Average all jumped after the chipmaker posted its fiscal first quarter results. However, all three major stock indexes dipped during the final hour of trading following the release of the FOMC minutes and a likely delay in cutting rates. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The average wage of South Korean workers remains above 90% of the OECD average, but the wage gap between men and women is the largest among OECD member countries. According to an OECD report on Thursday, Korean workers on average earned $48,922 in 2022, which is 91.6% of the average of OECD member countries. Now, that figure means that Korea ranks 19th out of 38 OECD countries. The country passed the 90% mark for the first time in 2020, when it stood at 90.4% of the OECD average. Meanwhile, the wage gap between men and women stood at 31.2% in 2022. That's the highest among OECD member countries. The AI Seoul Summit, co-hosted by South Korea and the United Kingdom this year, wrapped up on Wednesday with an AI Seoul Summit ministerial session held behind closed doors. Our Iuni has the key takeaways.
Held in collaboration with the AI Seoul Summit, the AI Global Forum hosted by the South Korean government brought together top officials, leading industry experts, and academic representatives from various nations. In the first session at the Korea Institute of Science and Technology in Seoul on Wednesday, experts discussed the future direction of global AI governance. For instance, how can the side effects of the technology be managed? Experts say that society will need to adapt to more capable AI systems. Fraud and cyber attacks, for example, could become more commonplace.
What we'll need to do is we'll need to have things like spam filters, but on your phone. But I think these sort of adaptation interventions won't be enough.
There's a lot of work still to be done, not only for private corporations, but the public. And as Marcus Anderlung put it, governments will need to intervene more. Big companies that have the power to utilize customer data for commercial purposes talked about how they safeguard consumer privacy.
We are based on the usual agreement. So that means private blog data did not use for our training.
Internet conglomerate Naver added that it is willing to further establish guidelines in collaboration with the government. Session 2 focused on integrating AI into the public sector and spreading the benefits with the world. Communications giant KT demonstrated what it's working on as part of its social responsibilities.
First of all, we have developed Senior Well-being Service, which uses AI to monitor the health and safety of elderly citizens.
However, experts say when developing AI opportunities, the needs of the target region should be considered as they may differ. Meanwhile, at the convention hall, the AI Seoul Summit ministerial session was held behind closed doors. This year's AI Seoul Summit, hosted by South Korea and the UK, conducted a private ministerial session, building upon the foundational discussions from Tuesday's Leaders Session and the first AI Safety Summit that was hosted last year by the UK. The session was co-chaired by Lee Jong-ho, South Korea's Minister of Science and ICT, and Michelle Donnellan, the United Kingdom's Secretary of State for Science of Innovation and Technology.
Key figures of the industry took part in in-depth discussions on AI innovation, safety, and sharing the benefits. Through this forum, it was reaffirmed that South Korea has the capability and leadership to set agendas on the international stage.
The minister added that South Korea will continue to collaborate with the global community to develop AI governance and safety. Iuni, Arirang News.
3 European leaders have announced plans to recognize Palestine as a state. The announcement was met with sharp criticism from the Israeli Prime Minister, who said such recognition is a prize for terrorism. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Ireland, Norway, and Spain have announced they will officially recognize Palestine as a state next week. The European nations say Palestine has the right to create an independent state and expect other countries to join in. The leaders say they're taking joint action for the sake of peace in the Middle East. According to Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre, recognizing Palestine is supporting moderate forces that are on a retreating front in a protracted and cruel conflict, calling it an investment in the only solution that can bring lasting peace in the Middle East. He also called on other countries to do the same in order to ensure that the process towards a two-state solution can build momentum. Spain's Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez accused Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of putting the two-state solution in danger with his policy of pain and destruction in Gaza, while Irish Prime Minister Simon Harris emphasized that Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. The prime ministers of all 3 nations announced the official recognition will take place next Tuesday. Meanwhile, in response to the European nations' decision to recognize Palestine as a state, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu slammed the decision, calling it a prize for terrorism.
The intention of several European countries to recognize a Palestinian state is a reward for terrorism. This evil cannot be given a state. This would be a terrorist state. It will try to repeat the massacre of October 7th again and again. We will not consent to this. Rewarding terrorism will not bring peace, neither will it stop us from defeating Hamas.
144 out of 193 member states of the UN recognize Palestine as a state. However, Britain and Australia have recently indicated in recent months that they will also follow suit, while EU members Malta and Slovenia have also made such indications. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Now, moving on to the medical dispute here in South Korea, the government says they're willing to hold talks in any form and whenever with the doctors, but without any unrealistic conditions. This comes as one of the country's largest doctors group expressed a willingness to engage in conversation with the government. Our Choi Soo-hyung has more.
While the South Korean government and the medical community agree that communication is necessary, the ongoing rift continues as both sides remain at an impasse. The Korean Medical Association, along with other doctor organizations as well as medical school professors, held a closed-door meeting on Wednesday afternoon to discuss the ongoing medical dispute. Junior doctors, however, did not participate. While the exact details of the meeting have not been revealed, the KMA spokesperson said that they are ready to engage in talks with the government. The second Vice Health Minister Park Min-soo responded by saying that the government is also willing to engage in talks, but stressed that the government is unable to accept what he called unrealistic conditions set forth by the medical community, which include a complete re-evaluation of the admission quota plan.
Since they've said that we will once again try contacting them and try to set up a date to hold talks. We hope that they are willing to hold talks without any conditions. We once again stress that the government is willing to hold talks in any form whenever.
A willingness to engage in talks whenever, as long as the medical community presents a reasonable and unified plan, was echoed by Prime Minister Han Duck-soo in a meeting held earlier in the afternoon. But it remains unclear whether this recent development will lead to a breakthrough, because as of Monday, only 5.1% of the total junior doctors in the nation returned to work, despite it marking 3 months since their absence began. Under the relevant law, junior doctors are only allowed up to 3 months off to qualify for their specialty certification exam the following year. Prime Minister Han also said that 16 out of the 32 medical schools have completed amendments to their medical school admission plans for next year, with the government also pledging to work closely with the remaining schools. The Korean Council for University Education will hold a University Admissions Committee meeting this week, where it will review and approve the amendments submitted and announce the new admission guidelines next week. And to address the ongoing shortage of doctors at hospitals, the Prime Minister also pledged to dispatch 120 more doctors from military hospitals starting Thursday, in addition to the 427 military and public health doctors that have already been deployed. Choi Soo-hyung, Arirang News.
With this year being Visit Korea Year designated by the government, there is much to enjoy if you're interested in visiting the country. In fact, fans from around the world who have a huge heart for Korea are already having the time of their life here. Our culture correspondent Song Yu-jin tells us more.
It's a dream come true for Ted, a 76-year-old YouTuber and former programmer. Popular for his Korean drama reviews and songs by his favorite artist, IU, which led IU to invite him to a concert in July, Zev is currently visiting Korea. Though he's visited Korea before, this trip is particularly special.
I can't tell you how happy I am. I'm absolutely thrilled. You know, I got here at 4:30 in the morning this morning, but I'm too excited to go lie around in a hotel room. Okay, they said, oh, take a rest and come for the luncheon. No, I'm not going to miss anything.
Zev is among the 49 invitees in the Korea Invites You program organized by the Culture Ministry and the Korea Tourism Organization. So among the more than 77,000 applicants from 185 countries and receiving recommendations from overseas branches of the Korea Tourism Organization, 49 people were chosen for the Korea Invites You program, a 5-day trip to Korea where they'll get to experience Korean culture firsthand.
We organized this program as part of the 2023 to 2024 Visit Korea Year. Our goal was to invite people from around the world who have a deep love and interest in Korea, as well as those with unique stories connected to our country. We want to show our appreciation for their ongoing support and share new and exciting aspects of Korean culture with them.
Take Chunny Chen, for example. She and her 9 high school friends are visiting Korea together again after 20 years. Taipei's Wesley Girls High School has been selecting Korea as its graduation trip destination since 2004, with Chen's class being the first.
I've been to Korea many times, as have my classmates. But this trip, coming back together, is even more special. Many places have changed a lot since we last visited, so we're experiencing a lot of the current Korean culture. We wore hanbok 20 years ago and will do so again tomorrow. We're really looking forward to it.
After a welcoming ceremony on Tuesday, the group headed to 1 Million Dance Studio, the largest of its kind in Korea. There, they learned K-pop dance moves from chief choreographer Choi Young-jun. It was an unforgettable moment for Alex, one of Malaysia's biggest social media influencers with over 6 million followers on TikTok. Known for his K-pop dance covers, he was even named one of the best dancers of the day.
I think K-pop has one of the best choreography and dance paired together. So I just started covering in my bedroom alone with my camera in front. So to be able to stand here and learn the choreography from the choreographer himself was really meaningful to me because he represents everything that I've been standing for and my whole content as a general. And I think it will mean a lot to my followers as well.
The day wrapped up with chimek, chicken, and baekju, which means beer in Korean. Participants enjoyed the beloved Korean combination of crispy fried chicken, fresh draft beer, and the traditional rice wine makgeolli, toasting their future adventures in Korea.
I'm half Korean. My mother is Korean, my father is English. And my special story with Korea is that I have learned so much about my culture through promoting it online, and I want to share that love with my followers. I host events, I do supper clubs, I teach people about hanbok and the history of Korean food and culture. And in doing that, I've learned more myself about Korean culture.
The group will split into 5 subgroups, each exploring different themes like Korean culture, food, and wellness, before heading home on Friday. Song Yu-jin, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. We begin today in the UK, where after months of speculation, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has announced a general election for July 4th. 44-year-old Sunak announced on Wednesday that he was calling the election earlier than expected, despite his Conservative Party lagging far behind the opposition Labour Party in public opinion polls. Sunak spoke outside 10 Downing Street in the pouring rain, saying that now is the moment for Britain to choose its future, while listing his achievements in government as a Prime Minister and a former Finance Minister. He said that the Conservatives will not put our hard-earned economic stability at risk. Labour leader Keir Starmer said the election is the moment the country's been waiting for and that there is so much pride and potential to unlock in the UK. The United States Midwest region has been hit by multiple tornadoes. Search and rescue efforts are still ongoing in Iowa, where the city of Greenfield has reported several fatalities. Over the past 30 hours, tornadoes have been reported in Iowa, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Oklahoma and Wisconsin, while major damage was seen in Iowa, with at least 18 tornadoes reported in the state. In Greenfield, Iowa police said at a news briefing on Tuesday evening that they have confirmed fatalities, but were unable to say exactly how many. Iowa State Patrol Sergeant Alex Dinkler said regarding the death toll that we're still counting at this time, while telling the reporters a good portion of Greenfield has been destroyed. Videos show devastation and severe damage to infrastructure as tornadoes flattened buildings and overturned cars. Greenfield saw at least an EF3 level tornado, which is a category for wind speeds of up to 265 kilometers per hour. Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds declared a disaster emergency for 15 counties in the state, saying that he will provide its full resources to help the residents. Italy's Atalanta BC took the Europa League title home after beating Bayer Leverkusen 3-0 on Wednesday, ending the German champions' unbeaten streak. Atalanta's 26-year-old winger Ademola Lookman scored a stunning hat-trick in the 3-0 victory. The British-born Lookman is the first player to score a hat-trick in a Europa League final. The Europa League title is the second major trophy Atalanta have won in their 117-year history and the first trophy of the 66-year-old head coach Gianpiero Gasperini's long career. It was the first loss of the season for Xabi Alonso's Bayer Leverkusen, dubbed Never Losen, for their incredible 51-game unbeaten run. In the US, a new airline called Bark Air, aimed at providing a first-class experience for the dog, a business-class experience for people, will take its maiden flight from New York to Los Angeles on Thursday. CEO Matt Meeker said that he created the company to cater to dogs of all sizes to ensure comfort and a fear-free experience on an airplane. Meeker said that he had the idea for 10 years after he personally experienced difficulty transporting his Great Dane. Bark Air aims to sell 10 tickets per flight for 10 dogs to travel in luxury in a 15-person capacity aircraft. Dogs will be offered an onboard spa and luxurious menus such as barcachinos and doggy champagne. Tickets will cost $8,000 for a one-way international flight to London and $6,000 for domestic flights between LA and New York City. Kim Jiyoung, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It's shaping up to be another hot and sunny day for most places, and especially those in Gyeongsang-do provinces and nearby areas should notice much warmer highs, with temperatures easily surpassing 30 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Sunshine has been on full blast the last couple of days, and today is no exception. The entire country will have strong sunshine all day today, so sunproof items are a must. Bright sunshine and high heat will spike ozone levels in most parts of the country. Chungcheong-namdo and Jeolla-namdo province will have higher levels during the day today. So please limit prolonged and heavy outdoor activities during the day and schedule them in the mornings and evenings when levels are lower. With that said, Daejeon gets up to 30 degrees this afternoon, Daegu, Gyeongju at 32 degrees. Now, early summer warmth continues through Saturday for many regions. Then nationwide rain in the forecast on Sunday afternoon into early next Monday. That rain should bring heat relief to the country. With that in mind, let's take a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Arirang News will be back at 2 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.